Hey, Dan.
Hi, Mark. Welcome back.
What do you mean, welcome back? You're the one that was isolated.
I know, but this is like my own little world, and I've been alone in it.
I'm in the COVID bubble.
You are, yeah. Welcome.
Congratulations on your negative COVID test.
I finally passed the test. Or I failed it. I guess I failed the test.
You failed the test.
Yeah.
You're no longer...
I'm COVID-free.
You no longer are COVID-y.
I barely had it to begin with, but...
I checked with medical professionals, my own in-house medical team, aka my wife, the nurse. She cleared me to come hang out with you.
Good. Deal.
Turns out that hospitals aren't nearly as picky as I am about hanging out with COVID patients.
Well, I barely had it. It's gone. I got the test today where I was like, no little bottom line. So I'm good.
There you go.
So let's drink out of the same glass. Test the theory. Test the stringency.
Let's not. I think this is enough.
Close enough.
I think what we know is you're less likely to get it off of a surface anyway.
Yeah.
So that just wouldn't be worth it.
All right. Well.
And we did pre-douse everything with some wild turkey rare breed.
We did. So we're sanitized.
I think we're in good shape.
Yeah.
Today, topic comes from a question, and I really should have looked. I forgot who asked me the question, but well, I won't find it now. The question was, or the comment was, let's talk more about control states and how that works. Part of me says it doesn't matter because you live where you live,
right,
or you're going to drive to whatever state you're going to drive to. But this week I had a lot of interaction with the secondary market. And I think those two things reside on opposite ends of a spectrum.
Yeah.
On one side of the spectrum, we have the U.S. federal government and 50 states plus some territories trying to regulate the flow and the sale of alcohol. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have another highly regulated body, just regulated by different people. Go ahead and pour some whiskey. That is taking care of everything that happens after the legal sale. Because selling, and actually I don't know for sure, I believe even trading, but for sure selling liquor is against the rules. But we've been talking a lot lately about how I've got some bottles that aren't necessarily unicorn bottles. God damn, can I talk a little bit?
Why?
They aren't necessarily unicorn bottles, but they have gone up significantly in value. And I've threatened to trade them. I've never sold anything on the secondary. I've never traded anything. I'm not saying I did this week. If you're the feds, if you're the popo.
If you're a narc.
If you're a narc. I'm not saying I did. But if I did take 2 bottles of whiskey and turn them into 7 bottles of whiskey.
That's math. I don't get math.
I just couldn't, I just wouldn't have been able to resist that.
Yeah, and so let's start with baseline here, because I also had some experiences this past couple weeks that soured me a little bit on prices and secondary nonsense. But let's start with a basic explainer for those of you out there who don't quite understand the differences. What is a control state? What does that mean?
After Prohibition, so it's 1933, when I can't remember which amendment it was, 12, whatever, that repealed Prohibition. The federal government pretty much put some guidelines in place and then let the states handle their own alcohol distribution. So even after Prohibition, for some states, it was years before they allowed the sale and consumption of alcohol. And there's a federal system that we refer to as the 3-tier system in place that says producers and importers sell to wholesalers or distributors. Wholesalers or distributors sell to retailers. The 2 or the 3 shall not mingle. So in general, a producer will not be a retailer. A producer will not be a supplier or a distributor. And the theory behind that was to give the small producers a chance, because large producers, absent such a system, could monopolize distribution, could keep little players out of the market. And somehow that was supposed to make things fairer for everybody.
Fair. Yes.
It is the reason that we don't have e-commerce for liquor in general in this country. So it's one of the reasons you can't just go buy a bottle off of Amazon.
Right.
But it turns out, as I was doing a little more reading, because I'm certainly not an expert in control states and 3-tier systems, that it is a federal structure in place that states may or may not adopt. Because it turns out in Washington state, they care not for the three-tier system. They do not participate. And retailers there can work with suppliers directly and strike deals.
They just pieced out of the three-tier
They just went, not really our thing.
All right.
We're just going to do our thing.
Good on you, Oregon.
Yeah, Washington.
Same. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, they're the same state.
Big wet state on the West Coast.
The big wet corner.
So it's not even something we have to do. But as you can imagine, the liquor lobby is huge. And suppliers don't want to give up this bit of a monopoly they have where they do get to decide a lot of things. Now, and it's kind of hard on retailers because when you enter into those agreements as a retailer with some of those suppliers, you're stuck in them for a while.
Yeah.
And that, again, was meant so that the supplier couldn't kick a retailer out of those or disadvantage them. It's just not the way it's, like so many things, there's unintended consequences.
Right.
So that's the general system. In a control state, right off the bat, we end up violating a lot of that because in a control state, the state takes control of distribution and in some states, even retail, but it's not cut and dry. So in some states, the state will control all these things by licensing companies and or individuals to fulfill the need for distribution or retail outlets. And in some states, they own all of that. So where I'm from and where Larry's from, who isn't here, Larry's at the vet with his cat today, or pet today, hope that works out. Alabama controls both the distribution and the retail for liquor. Now, in some states, they don't allow any privately owned retail. Alabama does, but those retail establishments have to buy from the state, who also runs retail stores, and you pay the same thing as a wholesaler, I think, as you do as a retail customer. So their prices by default are higher because they can't buy at a discount, even though they're a retailer. It's a mess. So you pay 20%, 30% more for a bottle there, but there's only a handful of state-controlled retail stores. These privately owned stores fill in the gaps, and that's how they survive, even though their prices are higher and their selections are typically limited.
That seems unnecessarily complicated.
Doesn't it, though?
Yes.
And I think that is how the secondary market comes about. There are limited bottles that everybody's interested in. A group of interested parties comes together and says, I've got this one, would you like to trade for that one, and or give me $100?
Right.
And that develops, and a lot of people are against the secondary market, namely the Van Winkle family hates the secondary market. A lot of the brands and distributors hate the secondary market. But I'll tell you, as somebody who never traded in the market, but was an active watcher of what was called the Bourbon Secondary Market, BSM group, it was on Facebook, had 55,000 members before Facebook cracked down on it and shut it down. That is a more effectively regulated environment than any governmental agency. If you struck a deal on that platform and screwed somebody, those people came after you, and they will find you. They will Liam Neeson you. They have a particular set of social media skills. You will lose that deal, and it was shocking to do that. And part of me says it breaks my heart that there's a mechanism to charge so much money, but the other part of me has a degree in economics, and something's worth what somebody will pay for it. You don't have to participate.
I'm struggling a little bit with the secondary, and is it a chicken or the egg sort of thing? Like, this bottle, for example, this Cream of Kentucky, this is the rye, the bottled and bond rye whiskey. I found this on the shelf for $75, which is retail. And then I got home, I bought it because I was like, oh, Cream of Kentucky, I want to try that out. I got home and I looked at the secondary, just really quickly, secondary prices, and it's easily twice that, easily. And, I'm grateful I got it for retail, but also, shouldn't I be able to get things for retail?
Yes.
That's what's crazy to me. And so the fact that the secondary exists is not so much bothersome to me as it is that now shops are jacking up their prices in response to that secondary pricing.
Let me reframe that for you. You've worked in retail. We both worked in bicycle shops. We know how hard it is to make a dollar in that environment. Nobody cares when you can't cover your overhead or your rent. Nobody cares when you have to discount things to move inventory.
Sure.
If there's an opportunity for additional profits or outsized profits to be made because of a market condition, shouldn't the retailer get to participate?
Yes.
In that some?
But here's another question for you. Would you ever, if you had a bike that was hard to get, would you hide it behind the counter? No, you put it on the floor with a price tag on it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what a lot of this is. Like, you have to go in and, hey, do you have any Bookers?
Well, now there's your chicken and egg thing.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, I've been very clear with this. If I'm a liquor store owner, any of those people are getting nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing. But if you put a thing on a shelf, you can't then decide somebody can't buy it because you don't like them.
Well, and
that's discrimination.
And that's what. So this is what happened, right? Like, and I don't know if they decided they didn't like me more than that. He just decided he could get more money out of me. But I went into a shop recently, saw Bookers on the shelf. The price on the shelf was $120, which is way over retail as it is. But I was willing to buy it because I wanted that bottle. And then he had 2 of them. I said, "Can I have 2 of them, please?" And he said, "Yes." And he took the 2 bottles and he put them on the counter. I said, "Oh, actually, I wanted the other batch, 2 bottles of the same batch." He had given me 2 different batches. And then he got suspicious. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he went back and he called his boss. And he said, "Boss, this guy wants 2 of these bottles." There was like 6 of them on the shelf. And then all of a sudden the price shot up to $130 or $150?
Yeah.
Come on. Like, that's absurd. I'm sitting here ready to give you money. You're being a jerk over $30.
You got profiled.
Absolutely. And I knew it. Like, I could feel it happening. And I was like, I'm going to wait and see what happens. And I shouldn't. I should have just walked out. But I was like, if he gives me these Bookers for $120, then I'm going to grab them. But he came back and he said, "No, they're $150, and I walked out. And
That's shitty.
it is.
I don't know that it's illegal.
It actually is illegal. You have to honor the price that's listed on the counter. It's actually a state law in Colorado. So this guy did break the law. He argued that it was, that price is for a different batch. He didn't even know there were batches until I told him.
I find that hard to believe.
But anyway, my point is, like, rare breed on the shelf all the time. $50-ish, $60.
Well, now that is the premise of why we started the Practical Still.
Right. But that's my point. Like, I have enough bottles of Bookers, and I like Bookers, and I drink Bookers. I don't buy it to collect it. I try to buy it to drink it. And now I've got these bottles on the shelf, and I'm thinking, boy, should I save them because it's going to be hard to get? I was like, you know what? I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to drink them. But I'm also not going to seek out Bookers anymore. I'm just going to buy stuff like this that I know is $50. It's on the shelf.
It's good.
It's good. And I don't have to beg people for it and play these games. And I'm sorry, but that's just a shitty business practice as a retailer. I don't care what your overhead is, first of all. Like, everybody's struggling.
Yeah, I don't care what your overhead is. I just don't think I don't think we need to bang on an above the board retailer that's trying to capture some of the market value rather than letting one of these whiskey flippers catch it.
Fine, absolutely fine. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I really wish people would just get stuff and put it on the shelf, at least occasionally, which Casey does down at Spirits. He'll get some E.H. Taylor and he'll just throw it on the shelf and be like, "It's on the shelf, come get it."
Yep.
And I think that's great once in a while. And if you're going to hold stuff for your loyal customers, that's cool too.
Yes.
And if you're going to charge a little extra than retail, that's okay too. But don't go crazy. You know, like, I saw Heaven Hill bottled and bond on the shelf for $150.
That's only $110 over what it's supposed to be.
Exactly. Come
also,
on.
remember the MSRP or SRP suggested. You're a word guy. What does that S word mean?
Absolutely.
Suggested.
You could charge whatever you want.
Yes.
But from a retail perspective, it probably costs you more as a retailer to have that sitting on the shelf for 9 months than to just get it out the door for $20 cheaper.
That's a good point. And one of the things I would love to ask a Casey or a store owner is, and Casey's probably not a good example because he's got a relatively small store with a concentration in nice whiskeys. But a store like I go to a lot, Hazel's, it's a gigantic store. The percentage of their overall revenue related to these bottles we're talking about has to be small.
Yeah, but that's how they get the good bottles, is they do a high volume of less expensive whiskey.
I understand, but the point is, why make it such a pain? Why go through all the grief? When the truth is, if you just gave it away,
Right.
you wouldn't lose all that much in
No.
relation to your overall revenue.
Right.
Why is it such a thing? Now Hazel's does a great thing, in my opinion, which is they reward the customers that spend money across the store.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. On the way here, I stopped at a local, let's do a little dickle. On the way here, I stopped at a store
average.
in Denver,
It's an average.
not to swap a bottle I was trading for 3 other bottles, but to see a friend. And they were doing one of their things, which it's not the highly allocated bottles, but it's the stuff that's tough to get.
Yeah.
They put it on, because they do some things that are only for their good customers. Argonaut is the name of the store, cool store in Denver. But this day it's, anybody and everybody, and they have a great big wheel they spin with pictures of bottles on it. You spin the wheel and you buy the bottle, and I think it's retail or close to retail.
I'm okay with a lot of that stuff as long as there's opportunities for every man at some point to buy something. It just the hiding behind the counter. It just seems absurd to me.
It offends your sensibilities.
It does, and it's just dishonest and creepy and weird, and it makes me have to go into a liquor store and ask for stuff and I told Casey flat out at Spirits, I was like, listen, every other place that I've been has basically been convincing me to just shop with you. And that's customer loyalty. That's exactly what you should be doing as a good shop, right? Because Casey's above board about stuff. He doesn't charge you an arm and a leg over retail. He treats you well. He remembers who you are and what you like. That's all great. But I'm not going to walk into his store and see something priced at 3, 4, 5 times retail. That's just stupid. I'm sorry. It's just stupid. To have Booker's on the shelf for $300, that's just stupid. There's no point. There's no benefit to the retailer. There's no benefit to the customer. And it's stupid.
But it sure happens.
And it's stupid.
So that's how the 3-tier system's supposed to work. So having lived in both a control state and a not control state, I like it here better.
More variety.
There's a lot more variety. When you go into an ABC store, an alcoholic beverage controlled whatever that
Close
stands
enough.
for. In Alabama, there's stuff. There's a lot more now there than there was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But then you walk into a place like Hazel's or Argonaut or any of these big stores, and I mean the spirit section of Hazel's is bigger than any ABC store in Alabama. The entire store.
Yeah.
And of course, it's different too. The ABC stores in Alabama don't worry about wine and beer. That gets handled, oddly enough, by independent distributors who are some of the wealthiest people in the area, and it's sold at grocery stores.
I wish some of our friends were online right now because some of them do live in control states, and some don't. And I think it'd be interesting to get their perspective because my inclination in Colorado is to say, at first when I was experimenting a lot and trying to find different bottles that I liked and that I didn't like, the variety was great.
Yep.
Now I kind of know what I like and what I don't like, and now I'm just like, it's all 90% of it is stuff I'll never buy.
And almost all of that you like is in those stores in Alabama. And the extreme upside of a control state is if you can secure a bottle, you will secure it at retail.
Retail, yeah.
No control states mark bottles up. They just don't.
Yeah.
Now, they have their own way of distributing some of that nice stuff.
Sure.
After what I'm sure is copious amounts of graft and corruption pulling the nice bottles off for other people. They do lotteries. They have other ways of distributing it. In Alabama, basically, they put a list out, and then once a year or twice a year when they do the highly allocated stuff, you can just go line up and wait for it. And then whenever they have not necessarily highly allocated pieces, there's a list they publish, so you know which store is going to have what, and you can go get in line or do whatever to buy it.
You know what I would be curious about for somebody, well, really in either one, if customer loyalty seems to count for a lot, right?
It does for us.
You spend a lot, you get preference, and that paid off for me once. I got a bottle of George T. Stagg, and it was like the best George T. Stagg batch. Fantastic. I have no idea how much I spent that year at that shop, but I'm curious to see who tracks what they spend and how much they had to spend to get that Pappy 23. Yeah. How much did you have to spend throughout the year to land at the top of the list to get that Halo bottle? That's what I'm curious about, because I feel like it's almost its own barrier to entry sort of caste system in bourbon, right? Like, or whiskey, I should say. Like, you have to spend this much to get into the club of good whiskey bottles.
I can tell you when I moved here, I picked Hazel's. And every Sunday I went to Hazel's and I walked in and I found Max in the whiskey department and I said hello to Max and I introduced myself over and over again in hopes of striking that relationship until I could walk in and he would go, "Hey, Mark," and I'd go, "Hey, Max," and I spent all I could spend. And at some point, Max took pity on me and just looked at me and he goes, "Man, I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. And you know, all the good stuff goes to our top 100 customers back then." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You're not even close."
Yeah.
This is Boulder, Colorado. There's a half a dozen customers that live near here that walk in and spend $1,500 every weekend.
There's more than one Supreme Court justice out of you.
You're never gonna make it.
Yeah.
He says it's adorable.
Yeah.
And I thought I appreciated the honesty.
Yeah.
And so I went to a smaller store and that really had very little whiskey selection. And I spent $2,260 in that little store. I went 38 times I walked into that store in a year. I spent an average of $65 per. And at the end of that year, that retailer got one bottle of Old Rip 10. And he called me with that bottle, and I was so excited. I thought, it's paid off. I've spent all I could spend in this little store. And he said, "I'm looking for the highest bidder."
Oh, jeez.
And I lost my mind, and I went, I could be anybody's highest bidder for a bottle of Old Rip 10 any day of the week. Go do what you think I'm going to say do. I'm out. I didn't go in that store for a year. And look, maybe everybody spends $2 or $3 grand in a store like that.
I mean, I just can't imagine. I mean,
We made up, by the way.
Well, good.
Later.
Good. And, inform him of, what he needs
I told
to
him
do.
exactly how I felt about that.
Well, and because, both of us kind of have, you more than I, work with businesses.
Yes,
And say,
every day.
retailers and say, this is how you treat your customers. I mean, it's not like you're just coming at this from the perspective of a customer. This is like good business practice.
And there's revenue follows us around.
Yeah.
If I like that store, I'm telling people they've got this bottle. Check out their beer selection.
Well, that's why I keep mentioning spirits. I mean, because they treat me right.
So every dollar I spend in a place typically gets multiplied by 2 or 3 because I'm got a big mouth and people ask me how to do this and what to buy, and I tell them where to go get it.
Yeah, I mean that's
and for what it's worth, Casey's this way, Max at the whole staff at Hazel's is this way. They're just nice people and they want to help you. Melissa, my wife, likes tequila. Max has probably saved me $1,000 from buying crappy tequila, trying to figure out which tequila we like. So that kind of relationship's valuable. Whether or not I get any good bottles out of it, different story. I don't really care.
Right.
It's a valuable relationship, 100%.
Yep, absolutely. And
so let's see. That's 3 tiers. I think we talked all the way through 3-tier system.
Yep.
I was surprised to find out that it's not a mandate that states could. I did not know Washington actually opted out of that. I think it's inevitable.
Can I, as an individual, declare myself a state and opt out? Because I'd like to opt out.
I don't think so. I think it's inevitable that we get more liberal sales policies across state lines, and that's the problem. Is we always talk about bootleggers making it across the state line and stuff, but the issue is really just it's really simple. It's that it's in the control of the states, and so some states will allow you to ship beer, wine, spirits into their state, and some won't. But spirits is always different. It's definitely controlled different than beer and wine is.
Yeah.
And then the secondary market, I don't know what to say. This may or may not have been my first experience. I had a bottle of Rock Hill Farms, which logically, it's a 100 proof bottle of blends. 7 proof points higher. It's a single barrel Buffalo Trace mash bill. I think it's number 2. Same mash bill that Bland's is. I paid $75 for it 2 or 3, 4 years. I don't remember. I think 2019, 3 years ago. I just couldn't imagine it was that good.
Right.
And the price just kept going up and up and up. And so I may or may not have traded that bottle for 4 other bottles of whiskey, including 2 bottles of Booker's. What was the third bottle? One of them was a High West Rendezvous.
Oh, yeah. And then the Russell's
That was this. That was this.
Oh.
May or may not have happened. What was the other?
Oh boy, I don't know. Oh, not, was it a Knob Creek?
It was a Knob Creek store.
Yeah. Which,
It's also it's an Argonaut
Is it?
pick, which
Okay.
are always
they're
good.
supposed to be really good.
And then I had a Stag Junior batch 13, which we both love.
Mm-hmm.
They're very enjoyable, but I mean, I don't. How many have we had? A bunch.
A few, yeah.
What's one more going to be? We've even had that batch.
Yep.
Oddly enough, I got hosed in that deal where we had both had bottles.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to do a head to head. You had a 13, and I had a 12 and a 13.
Yeah.
And so we opened my 12. 12s are, because they're over 130 proof,
Yeah, so hot.
they're worth another 150
Yeah.
bucks on top of what I got for the, I may have gotten for the 13. But that one more of those isn't going to make me happy.
Right.
A bottle of Booker's, a Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye, a bottle of Rare Breed.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Any one of those bottles is at least as enjoyable as the Stag Junior to me.
My experience with Stag Junior is if it falls into my hands, I'm not going to complain. But
No.
I would not stand in line for it.
No.
You know?
If I buy one now at retail, I'll feel obligated to drink it.
Yeah.
And I'll gladly
Well, and
drink
that's
it.
the 13 that I had, I paid $65.
Yeah, if I bought one now, I'd never paid more than 60 for one. But if I did, from a place like Hazel's where I
Yeah,
feel like
get
a
your
relationship,
loyalty.
I'd feel obligated to drink that bottle
Yeah.
and not sell it or trade it.
It
It sure is a hard decision.
It's
these
a
days.
good bottle. Let's be
It's
clear.
delicious. It's delicious.
At
but
$65, it's a great bottle.
I don't enjoy it any more than this, though.
Yeah.
In fact, the flavors are better in this Rare Breed, especially this batch of Rare Breed.
Yeah.
Than to me than it is in the Stag Junior.
I just don't have any basis for comparison anymore because it's so few and far between that we get Stag Junior. I can't just be like, oh, let's see.
You know, Dan, there's a video on our YouTube channel
yeah.
where you and I drank those.
Is that the
bottles.
Practical Still? I've
It's
heard
the
of those
Practical
guys.
Still. You should taste. You should watch that.
Two young dapper guys. Yeah.
We hadn't drank that much.
We got two things to test here, if you want to keep drinking.
Yeah, so let's do that. So I think we covered the main thing. Love to know you guys' views on the secondary market. Do you trade in that? I had not ever. I may have recently. I still have never sold anything. I may have traded for some stuff. I'm also out of those bottles because every other really valuable bottle I've got is either gone or open currently. So I still think it's more fun to drink.
Isn't it crazy that you could probably, I mean, I wouldn't know. I've never done anything on the secondary market except trade. I know I maybe have traded, but you could sell open bottles.
I don't understand that.
That's crazy to me.
I gave an open bottle away. We did a club pick one time. It was just terrible. I just put it out there and went, "This is terrible."
I
Does
have
anybody want it?
I have one that I paid quite a bit of money for, and I'm happy to give it away at this
Yeah.
point. 'Cause
But yeah, people trade open bottles. And I don't know, in a lot of those groups, I know the one I follow, those people are friends. They've gotten to be tight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's any different than I have a bottle I didn't care for and
Right.
you like it and
What
I
do
hand
you
it to
want?
you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's any different, but it
not.
is a little weird if you don't know somebody taking
Yeah.
an open bottle of whiskey.
yeah, that's, I mean,
On the other hand, we go to bars and restaurants and we drink out
I
of their open
suppose.
bottles.
Yeah, I mean, but you're just kind of taking the risk of understanding: is it really that bottle? Is it changed because it's been sitting? Did somebody dump something else in here? You know,
All those same things exist in a restaurant.
That's
We're
true.
paying exorbitant prices.
that's true. That's true.
I don't think it's that big a deal. So yes, with all that business out of the way,
Yeah.
let's try some Japanese whiskey.
All right.
Tell me about this Japanese whiskey.
So I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's distilled by Nirasaki Distillery, and I know almost nothing about Japanese whiskeys. I will be completely honest, but this was another Spirits Wine Provisions Whiskey Club pick, and there are 4 expressions of this. There's a summer, spring, fall, winter. This is the autumn, and it's 40%, so it's pretty low proof. It's 80 proof. And I don't, like I said, I don't know a ton about Japanese whiskey, but in my brief tasting of this, it's always weird to me to go to low proof, like 80 proof. I mean, to me, 93 proof, that kind of thing is fine, 90 proof, but when you get down to 80, that's a totally different thing. So what you're looking for is less of the heat, right? And like less of that overwhelming burn and more of like, is there complexity to this? Is there flavor to this?
Mm-hmm.
This one's supposed to have a good bit of like honey and spice and some oak. I don't know. I mean, those are the notes that I got, or those are the tasting notes I received from where I bought this. I've tasted a tiny sample of this. My wife really likes it, so we'll see. we see how we feel about it.
So that is Japanese whiskey. I don't know all the rules of Japanese whiskey. I do know it's much closer to Scotch than it is to American whiskey.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's in used barrels, isn't it? Yeah.
And this particular one is called a blended whiskey.
Ooh, I got the requisite amount on the table.
I don't know why we spill. I don't spill like this.
Because these are
at
the
home.
tiniest glasses.
Is it really the glass?
We have to use. We started using tiny glasses because I was doing massive pours.
Too bad there's music licensing, because I could play Tiny Dancer right then.
That would have been good. Just envision that.
But that does say blended whiskey,
Yeah.
which means, I believe it would mean like it would mean in blended Scotch, and that there's likely some single malt component to this,
Yeah.
at least 30% in Scotch it is, I believe. But there can be also grain whiskey, neutral grain spirits, and that's awfully dark for a 40% whiskey, so I'm
Probably
guessing
color.
there's some coloring in there.
A lot of caramel on the nose, I think, anyway. And there's like a sweeter confection underneath it.
Bubblegum.
Yeah, I guess a little bit. I get the bubblegum taste.
That's all I get.
But it's not like the Wise Man. Remember that stuff, the Kentucky
That's
Ale?
just nasty.
That felt like you just took like Big League Chew and just
That was like you took Big League Chew and you stuffed it in some burnt wood and you peed on it. That's what that tasted like.
I did not see that last part coming.
Nasty.
Yeah, there's a lot of confection bubblegummy flavor in
That is not ugly. It is also not enjoyable.
I actually think it's got kind of an enjoyable mouthfeel. It's kind of oily and,
I'll give you that.
you know, flavor-wise, it doesn't do a whole lot for me. I don't get any of the spice. I get maybe a little bit of the honey. But yeah, mostly bubblegum.
It is not the worst whiskey in the world.
No.
And I could definitely take that, a little lemon, a little soda water, nice little summer drink.
It is, and that's what I was going to say next. Was it's kind of like a summer whiskey, sitting in the backyard on a hot day.
It does have body though, which is a nice thing, because often a 40% whiskey will have no body, and it is different too. So we talk about this a lot when we talk about scotches, because a lot of scotches are at 40%. Don't let that put you off. It's not the same
Yeah.
as a 3 or 4 year old bourbon at 40%.
Yeah.
It spends that time in the used barrel. It's just different.
This does
give it a
ha-
chance.
This does have kind of the oiliness of a Scotch, I would say, more than anything bourbon related.
There is a feel to it. I'm not going to call it oily, because I think that denotes the chemicals in the whiskey. This
Yeah.
feels like it's something else is in there.
Well, there is a mouthfeel, though.
Yes, there is a.
There is something to note.
there is a.
It is in my mouth.
Yeah, and I would pour this out if we had a pour glass,
I can get a pour glass.
but we don't. And it's just a little.
We have a pour floor. It's 80 proof. It's basically water.
Yeah, it didn't know. Well, it's not basically water.
I'm kidding. Come on.
It's not bad.
No, it's not something I would go out of my way for.
There's a price. We talked about this on a podcast a long time ago. We can talk about whiskey in a lot of ways, and there's a financial component to it. There's a popularity component, but there's resources that come with any hobby. And whiskey gets expensive. And one of those resources to me is just, I don't know how to, there's a biologic expense to drinking whiskey. We can't drink all we want.
Right.
And so sometimes that's how I look at these bottles. It's not as if it's bad. If I went to a friend's house and they served me this, I'd gladly drink it and enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah.
But given what else I have available, the opportunity cost of drinking this
Yeah.
is high.
This cost me, I think it was 58 plus tax.
Yeah, and that's the financial part. I'm just talking about my liver can only take so
Right,
much.
right.
Am I going to drink 2 ounces of that, or
Right,
am I
or-
going to drink 2 ounces of this, which costs less than that?
Undoubtedly, yeah. I mean, my wife likes this one, so I don't feel too bad about having it on the shelf. She's probably going to rip through this one pretty quickly. It's a good summer whiskey. For the money, I would buy the rare
And there's a
breed.
value to drinking something different. We don't want to always drink the same old thing over and over again.
If for nothing else, for perspective, right? Yeah.
Perspective,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
We wouldn't know what that was
Yeah.
like if we hadn't drank it. We didn't even talk about the sip we had of that. Boy, if you just don't like Dickel, I get it. There's Mika the puppy outside.
It's my dog.
Mika apparently likes Japanese whiskey and is a little upset that we've not given
He's
it
trying to come in to drink some of
given
it.
it more
Yes.
praise. But that Dickel 15, I get that it's a polarizing whiskey, but holy smoke, that stuff's good.
It's just so good every single time. It's like, again, with my disillusionment with what's going on with Booker's, I'm just not going to chase it anymore, and I'm going to focus on these. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere, and they're so reliable.
they had the Dickel 15s had a little price spike around here.
Yeah.
People thought they'd get more for them. That didn't last. They sat on the shelves and it drifted back down.
Yeah.
60 is still a lot of money for a bottle of whiskey, but in today's market, at 15 years old, with some varied proof, so you get some. I don't know what makes the proof so varied on those, but you do get some different experiences.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a deal.
And I've had probably 5 bottles of these now, and every single one has been phenomenal. So why not? I love Booker's. It's my favorite whiskey. I'm just not going to chase it anymore, especially when this stuff. I do worry that these are going to start to become the next Booker's. You know.
Well, so funny with Wild Turkey, it's never been that. It's never been the darling of the whiskey geeks. The last couple of Master's Keep releases have started to break that because those are $175 bottles. They typically didn't bring much on the secondary market. The Cornerstone Rye did, which we enjoyed. It didn't blow my mind. It was good.
Yeah.
It was sublime. But now the last one, the Master's Keep one, the toasted barrel thing, it's bringing $300-$400, which is not crazy with a $175 retail.
Still though. Come on.
And if you can get one of the originals, I had a bottle of the very first Master's Keep release.
Yeah.
It was amazing. A 17-year-old bourbon that spent time in the story I heard was Jimmy Russell doesn't think old whiskey's the way to go, so he wanted to get it out. Eddie Russell thought he wanted to age it, so he had a buddy that had a stone warehouse rather than their wooden clad.
Yeah.
He put it in the stone warehouse for some years. He brought it back to 17-year. It was so good.
Yeah.
That bottle's bringing $400 or $500 now if you can find one of those.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. But that's that. Let me ask you about that Cream of Kentucky Rye.
Yes.
So that's former master distiller at Four Roses, Jim Rutledge. We bought, we drank the bottle I bought of the very first bourbon he released, 11-and-a-half-year-old, probably Barton sourced bourbon. I think we went back and forth on it. I think we ended up liking it, which was unusual because I don't typically really care for Barton whiskeys. But Barton Rye, that's some good stuff. I believe that's what resides in that Kentucky Owl Rye, is Old Barton Rye. That's what's in a lot of
Should we, now here's a question. Should we open this live on when nobody's watching today? Or should we do an open the bottle?
Well, both is a good answer.
I think that's fine. So I bought this bottle at retail, $75. It's fetching quite a lot on secondary.
I don't want to pressure you to open that.
I don't think that's what it's here for. We're either going to open it now or we're going to open it next week.
Okay, well then open it now.
All right.
But Barton Rye has always been delicious.
Yeah.
And I don't know that's what that is. I didn't even know that was a bottle until here recently.
Yeah, no, this just sort of popped up, and I had heard about it literally a day before I saw it on the shelf. Smoke.
How does that keep doing that?
Oh, man.
I don't want to mess the
Yeah, whatever.
What is, I need to do some, does anybody know what the smoke thing is? I don't know why
I know,
it
but
does
it's
that.
wonderful, and I love it.
Look at that color, rich. So it's bottled and bond. We know it's at
Yes.
least 4 years old, but it's not age dated, correct?
Not age stated, bottle and bond, personally curated by Jim Rutledge. Kentucky straight rye whiskey. Let's see, limited to only 70 barrels. One of a kind release, blah, blah, blah. That's about all ooh, apple juice.
Like spoiled apple juice.
Apple cider. That's what spoiled apple juice is.
That's not the most pleasant nose.
So this is interesting, a Ryman rye, estate grown. Do you know what Ryman rye is?
I do not, but I know there is a move to go find some of the older rye grains. Older rye grains had a lot lower starch content in them. The starch doesn't taste like anything. So I know there's a move to go find those grains.
I know exactly what you're going to say about that. Yeah, that's kind of my impression too. That is surprisingly bad.
It gets worse as it sits there. Oh, shit.
That is really bad.
Something's wrong with that.
That is really bad. And the funk just sits on you.
It does. It gets worse.
That's disappointing.
I always feel bad when you buy bottles that suck. Like I buy bottles that suck, I don't feel as bad.
Well, that's nice. Because I feel bad too when I buy bottles that suck. I mean, this is a $75 bottle, and that was not a lot. That's a lot of change.
terrible.
That is really not good.
And a lot of times I'll say that's terrible for my palate. I'm sure somebody likes it.
There's
I just
something-
can't imagine why somebody likes that.
The nose is oddly familiar to me,
There's something in there that we're going to figure out in a second.
and it's something familiar that I know I don't like. Like,
It's not familiar. I think there's.
that's not good. That's not good. I mean, let me try. Let me take another. To be fair, I've only taken one sip. Yeah, no, that's all oak and. Try a little water in it, maybe. No. Yeah, there's just like a rot on the back end. Ugh.
On the list of things you don't want to list as a tasting note, rot. Yeah, it's just awful.
If you water it down, it takes away a little bit of the edge off of it, but it's still not good. That's not good. Oh, it's so disappointing. Because that Cream of Kentucky that we had, the bourbon, we opened that just outside in the driveway. God, that was 3 years ago now. That was a long time ago. And I remember our first impressions were good, not great. And then we went back to it and we didn't like it. And then we went back to it again and we liked it a lot.
That is just terrible.
This is not
It's
good.
making my eyes water. It's so bad.
This is really not good. This is really, yeah.
I think there's something like. Is there a dead animal in that?
Oh.
Is there a mouse in the bottom of that bottle?
I mean, so if you're watching, like, keep in mind that Mark and I often differ on a lot of these bottles. Like, where he'll be like, "This is."
Especially if it's not extremes.
Yeah.
We'll differ a lot.
Yeah.
Like I think it's not good, and you think it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll differ that way. We almost never do this.
This is not good. This is not good. Something feels off about this. I'm going to dump this. This is gross. That's sad. That's really sad. I mean, Rutledge, you can usually kind of rely on that name. Not this one, man.
I'm gonna nail what that nasty flavor is. I can recognize it.
It's still sticking with me. I'm going to rinse it out. Like, we've only had a few pour them out bottles in the yard. We filmed one once. That was pretty fun. I don't know if that ever made it on the YouTube channel.
No, I felt bad about that one. That was the Woodford double oaked.
Yeah,
It was so awful. And to I don't remember how much that you had, but I'll say to my credit,
a lot.
I tried really hard on that bottle. It was just awful. It tasted like wet cardboard and moldy socks.
So, like when you taste milk and it's bad immediately?
Yes, that's it.
That's it. Something's not right about this.
Yeah, that tastes.
This is a drain pour.
That tasted rotted.
This is a drain pour. I hate to say it.
I would say we do an open the bottle video, but I just don't want to drink any more of that.
I think we just did it. We'll just cut this part. I mean, that's sad. That really is sad because I did like the bourbon.
Maybe it's milk or maybe it's rotted meat. That there's some horrid flavor of that.
Yeah, like a mold or something. I don't know.
It's not mold. It's rot.
Yeah, something's not right with that. I mean, geez, even just going back to
That's
this.
terrible. How could somebody drink that and go, yeah, let's put this in a bottle and put my name on it?
That's just not good.
What's that say at the top of the back of the label?
Double
rich.
rich. Whatever that means. It's trademarked. It's in quotations.
It means something to me. My dad, who I miss terribly.
Yes.
Dad would get what he called a double rich chocolate milkshake, which was a misnomer because there were 3 components to a double rich chocolate milkshake: chocolate milk, chocolate ice cream, chocolate syrup. So he called it a double rich chocolate milkshake.
Yikes!
And we used to get them.
That just put me in a sugar coma, man.
We used to get them at 2 places. We get them at the Howard Johnson's on the edge of I-65 in Mobile, Alabama, and we get them at Wiedemeyer's Old Dutch Ice Cream Shop, which is still there. It's a Cammy's Old Dutch now.
Yeah. Wow.
But that's double rich means something to me.
Double.
It doesn't mean rotted meat, though.
Something's up with this. Like,
That's awful.
I don't know if I just got a bad bottle or something, but man, that's bad.
That's awful.
I'm sorry. And it's too bad because I really do like the cream of Kentucky bourbon.
It's not going anywhere either. I just drank a bunch of water.
Yeah. It's definitely because you got to drink some of this to get that out.
Yeah, I drank some.
Well, that's unfortunate, but we're doing the hard work, so you don't have to.
We're doing the hard work. We hate to diss any product, but do not buy that whiskey. If you're curious, go find a bar or come here.
Come to my garage.
Dan will gladly pour you all of that you want.
Happily.
But don't buy that bottle. It's terrible.
It is really bad. That's unfortunate. It really is. That's sad. And again, $75 retail. It's going for twice that on the secondary. And
I think you need to give that back to Casey and say, I want to contribute to your customers' well-being.
I didn't buy this at Casey's.
Where'd you buy it?
Hazel's.
Hazel's.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Hazel's usually has really good taste too. But
Well, I mean, they
But to be fair-
they don't pick everything that comes in
no,
the
but
store.
also to be fair, they had this on the shelf at retail. I didn't spend $150 to try this. So good. I'm glad to have that have happened. Not good. Not good.
I'll let Max know that that's a poor whiskey.
Yeah, bad.
This is way better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I bought this at Casey's. Anyway, glad we got to test that for you guys. Don't chase it.
Terrible. I'm glad we didn't do a whole episode about that whiskey. A short episode.
That would have been a very sad
Hey, this
episode.
sucks.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Okay, so hope that helps with control states, with secondary markets. We would certainly love to know what you think about all those things. Let us know in the comments. Let us know what else you want us to talk about. 'Cause, we're just going to sit here and talk anyway.
Oh, important note. 2:30 Mountain Standard Time. That is our new time.
That's our new time. And let's see, next week I'm gone.
And then the following week, I'm gone.
Yeah, so we may or may not do Friday Sips Live next week. I really haven't figured out a good way to let people know that.
We need a newsletter, perhaps.
Perhaps. I'll tell you, maybe I'll do a short that says we're not going to be here.
Technically, we already have a newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter. I don't know what the address is, but we'll put it right there.
Is it on our website?
No, but it's we have a Substack.
Oh, we'll put it on our website.
All right, we'll put it on the website.
thepracticalstill.com.
Yes.
Go there. And check out the podcast. We don't do them very often. The last couple with my friend Stacy were fun. Dan doesn't like doing podcasts with me anymore.
That is
I don't know
not
why.
true.
He does a lot of podcasts.
I do like 8 podcasts.
Which is a good thing. It's in the description too. But check out the Slow Guy on the Fast Ride at Slow Guy on the Fast Ride on Instagram, Slow Guy Fast Ride on Twitter, slowguyonthefastride.com. If you're into bicycles, particularly road bikes, that's what you want to do. We're also about to launch Dawn Patrol MTB, which is all about mountain bikes. Check that out. On the hat, hats are available, which means
T-shirts.
I mean, clearly we're going to be successful. We have hats and T-shirts.
And stickers.
Also, we got a lot of podcasts that we're bringing into our little
Mental Health League.
Mental Health League. Everybody struggles with mental health here and there. Whether it's a little struggle or a big struggle, my friend Bill Garrels interviews some top flight athletes to hear about how they deal with those struggles. It's fun. And if there's a podcast that we don't do that you want us to do, let us know that too.
Yeah.
He could do 4 or 5 more podcasts.
I'll do 8 more. Who cares?
Cheers. Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.
Thanks for the fun.
Yeah.
Sorry that bottle sucked.
Yeah,
but
me
it did.
too.
We'll see everybody next week.